Welcome to this version of the AV Smackdown. I am Derek Kelly. I am the Director of Technical Service Operations for Whitlock. Joining me, as always, is Christopher Netto on the East Coast and Mark Coxon on the West Coast. Gentlemen, thank you for participating as you usually do.
Hey, when I saw that it was you coming on the video, I was like, Mark, we're in for an interesting ride here. Of all the people that could possibly pop up as a guest host, you're going to give us a difficult time with some technical stuff. So we're ready for it. You throw it and we'll tap dance and see what we can do.
Yeah, I was excited too. I mean, we've had some great moderators, but I would say that Derek's probably, the biggest star of them all, for sure.
Without a doubt. Like Walk of Fame type star.
I'm glad people recognize that. So. So this is going to be kind of an interesting one because this has a lot of different areas, but there's been a number of conversations around experience as of late in the AV world, and some people are probably getting sick of the buzzword of experience. But this is a different kind of approach to it of what really is going to lead to long-term better results. Great customer experiences or great employee experiences at various companies. So the two, who's going to lead you to the better long term?
Well, I'm gonna take the biggest cop out, and I'll go first so that Chris can beat me up for being wishy-washy. But I would say you can't have one without the other, honestly. In order to provide a good customer experience, I used to work in the hotel industry. When I was a kid working through college, I worked in a restaurant. One of the things I learned very early on with companies is that companies that want to have great customer experiences have to empower their employees, and they have to trust them. So, if I was working in the restaurant at the hotel and somebody said that there was construction in the hall that woke them up at 5 a.m, I had the ability to do up to comping their room night at the hotel that we were at as a waiter in the hotel. So being that first point of contact for the customer really creates, and empowering that employee creates the ability to provide a great customer experience. Like these people were on, I asked them if they were there for work, if they were, oh no, we're getting away from the kids. Why are you up at 5:45 in the restaurant, right? Oh, there was construction in the hall. Great, you know what, I'm gonna take care of your night because you took a vacation to get away, we woke you up, have some breakfast, hopefully that eases your pain a little bit. But the thought was that as an employee, if I had to go get a manager and then that manager had to go get somebody from the front desk and that front desk had to go get their manager, we made the customer retell their bad story 4 times. How much do they remember it when they've repeated it 4 times in a row, right? So if you want to have a great customer experience, you have to have employees who are proprietors of the business. They have to feel like they are part of the business. They are part of the machine. You have to have employees that are empowered to make decisions within a certain amount. And then you have to take the attitude that if people are making mistakes or going outside those boundaries, then you coach after the fact. Don't go back and reverse their decision, because then what you did is you just make them pass the buck next time. If I go back and every time I see somebody do something I don't think they should have done, and I go back and say, no, we're not going to do that, and now you got to call that person back and tell them you were wrong, you talked to me, and that's not the way it's happening. What are the chances they try to tackle problems on their own in the future? So I really think that it starts with the company. If you have a company that trusts and empowers employees. When I worked at another company that I was at, one of the greatest things I ever heard our president say was, when you start interacting with anybody in the company, assume 3 things. Assume that that person is smart, that they know their job, and they have the customer's best interest in mind. He goes, and if you start asking those things, you won't start with what the hell, you'll start with help me understand why we're doing it this way. And I think if you breed a culture that way, then the customers are easy, right? Because the people we deal with most of the day are each other, our peers in our industry. Our customer meetings don't take our whole day. My meeting takes an hour. It takes me 4 hours in the background to work with my engineers to make sure the procurement gets done right, to make sure our delivery is done through our logistics team. So for me, I guess that answer says employees after all that. So.
It's kind of hard to not do that, but to say that it's employees simply because we're on the other side of the business. We've been customers, right? I mean, I learned about customer service, not from AV. I learned from customer service dealing food to people. You want to mess with people, man, you go serve them food. That's something that they are going to consume and need to walk out there and feel happy that they just ate a slice of pizza. If you mess that up, that $2 slice of pizza, they'll never come back. They'll never order, and everybody will hate it. But it's amazing, that's also very personal to them. So coming into the AV technical world, in my head, it was, hey, we delivered a pizza and the thing flipped over. Just get them another pizza and offer them a credit for the next time, and they would happily take that, and you let them, believe it or not, keep the old pizza. Even though it came flipped, if you took it back, they get upset about that as well. So it's a customer service mindset from the inside. It's cultural, right? Inside a company, it all comes back to accountability, right? In the whole, I guess, operation of it, we're accountable for everything, for every little piece of it, whether we want to admit it or not. The problem is that many corporate cultures silo things. And to break through those silos is very difficult in many ways. You have one operation that doesn't speak to the other, or the other operation will only get, the file, the paperwork has to be completed in order for the other one to take it. And nothing will happen unless that paperwork. That's great that you have a paper trail. But at the same time, can we just move this along? There's been times, and then people now start changing the process, and people get upset. Right? That's not how we do it. There's a Gantt chart that tells you how this thing goes. And Gantt charts, as good as they are, and we may have talked about this online, they show the steps of the project, but they have to be flexible and move along to an extent, right? Some of the most difficult, conversations with customers for people that are customer facing is, where is the product? I waited, I got the product. It's a great product. Now what? What do we do? There was a disconnect on the closeout process. There was a disconnect in the qualification process, or the handovers. The handovers create this this bump in the road that people can't get through. And you try not to show that to the end user, but the fact is that they see it. This product's been sitting here for 3 days. Where is everybody? Now, integrators are getting called, manufacturers are getting called, distributors were called. It's in your warehouse. Why didn't nobody notify this? And it sort of got around that it was there, or that it had a 2-week delay. It got there, 7 days early. Can we find out about that? Or we were just going to ship it and wait? There's certain things that can be avoided.
You think that the increasing nature of email as a legal use case and process and everything else like that has an effect on how a company views risk in this part of the process of providing a good customer experience while protecting their employees? Do you think that might affect why some companies go to the lengths that they go to have a documented process that has to be followed to the letter of the law because of financial risk associated with some of the levels of projects that are going on from an AV perspective and the cost?
Yeah, I wish email was the only thing out there that way that people could get a hold of us. But, in this day and age, there is 100 different ways to do it. And what people ultimately want on the end user side, it as an integrator, I know it as a former consultant and as an end user. Mark knows it as a manufacturer, and I obviously know it as a manufacturer too now. But it's communication. Information is currency these days. Information will buy you time, will buy you the ability to calm a customer down, and that only used to be done with a face-to-face operation. You had to get there, and you used to show up and say, hey, I brought you that extra power supply just in case. Well, nowadays, you're dealing with, hey, it'll be there tomorrow. I have the person on the line. If you need, we can get on the line with this. But I think information and how information shared now is a big currency and can help more than hurt. And it doesn't necessarily have to be email, though email has obviously now the paper trail to it, which makes it a legal document. Go ahead, Mark, you were going to say.
Yeah, I was going to say, well, to actually answer Derek's question, Chris, geez, dancing around. No, I was going to say, I think that's why, companies employ people. If we were just going to do this all with email, then great, you could have that process, but there's something to be said for yes and. So anytime that I have a situation like this, I mean, there's power in the telephone. There's power in picking up and calling a customer and saying, hey, just so you know, this is going to look a little bumpy on the back end because you're going to be copied on a bunch of stuff and you're going to see a handoff from me to service and whatnot. But that's all just moving along. Don't worry about it. There's no action item there for you until I get back to you again. Right? My job as a salesperson in my company, when I'm dealing with clients or if I'm dealing with an end user support issue or any of those things, my job is to grease the skids. I tell that to people all the time. My job is to make this the easiest experience for you that I can. And if I call and have a conversation like that, I mean, if I have a conversation and we talk about action items and what needs to be done to solve a problem, I always make sure I said, you know what, I'm going to send you an email right after we hang up detailing what we talked about with the 4 or 5 things that we need. And these are the people you're going to see copied in and what you're going to see happen. So I think you have the opportunity to do both. You have the opportunity to provide that human interaction as well as provide, I guess, appease the legal accountability, liability piece that a company has as well, and still be a very easy company to do business with.
Well, and some of that is theory, and some of that, the mess of reality kind of comes in play where you're dealing with individuals, companies, some of the people that you're contacting, some of the people you're given as a point of contact are, at that point might not be the ones who are requesting some of the documentation, some of the additional steps, what's your process, your governance, everything else like that. When we make presentations for these large projects, and a lot of times they're looking for what our spelled out governance process is, what our handoff is. Here's a nice shiny document that's 75 pages long that explains everything we do. And that's where some of this gets into, the empowerment side of it. You bring up the empowerment side that it becomes almost creating another process around that of how we empower people. And next thing you know, it's 250 pages long of what's available, what's allowed. And then next thing you know, you turn into, trying to teach that over and over again and replicate that amongst new employees and allow them the ability to be empowered. Conceptually, it's what every company strives for. Practice is incredibly difficult and has to be from top down, consistent. And your entire management team, from your top CEO all the way down to your middle managers, all the way down to your in-person managers and field managers, all have to have the exact same mindset, pulling from the same rope from that perspective. Easy to do when it's 20 people, incredibly difficult when it's 900 plus. And that's where it gets kind of interesting. So, and Chris, you raised your hand, I saw. So.
I have to ask it because obviously me and Mark are a piece of this puzzle as well. What do you as an integrator ultimately expect, and not just for the company that myself and Mark work for, but what do you expect from manufacturers in general? What helps ease that? Is it support? Is it the communication? What is it? To be honest with you, can you define what you need from manufacturers that could help manufacturers listening to this show and go, you know what, we need to concentrate more on this or that?
Support, communication. I mean, from the sport perspective, I already know and can list off the top of my head all the manufacturers who make it incredibly difficult to go through an RMA process. And when you're on site and when you're dealing with an issue where you have a deadline and you have to jump through 17 hoops and fill out this document that then leads to this person calling you, that then leads to these 17 steps to be able to do X, Y, Z, to then have them go, okay, we'll ship you, you have to ship it back to us and then wait 5 days for our evaluation. And then we'll decide whether or not we're going to ship you a replacement. I already know what those manufacturers are, and you start seeing those being specified less. It's also things like relating to, to us without thinking of a sales quota behind things. There's a number of reps who come to me who are only looking to make sure that they meet their number, as opposed to going, what can we do to help you? And it may be nothing at that point. And, but the biggest thing is growing that relationship and having something just be, hey, I'm in the area. You want to go, get a coffee. You want to go grab a beer, grab a shot, whatever. Like after work, you want to meet up for a couple of minutes and just, building that relationship, providing an ease of use into working with your product, be it how we order it, how we consume your technical specifications, how we can work together on opportunities. Doesn't necessarily always have to be price. We're a commodity industry, and some of us, are not always going to be the cheapest price in the room, and we're okay with that. But it's more along the lines of what support are you going to provide long term? And if I know we're in an awful situation and I can call somebody and say, hey, listen, I just really need this here. We'll work out the details later. I know of a handful of manufacturers and people at those manufacturers that I can call when I need it, and they're going to show up. Those are the ones that get specified. Those are the ones that keep getting the repeat business. The ones that make you fill out a 17-page report just so you can get an RMA process. Those are the ones that eventually we stop specifying, just because of the fact that we know when their product works, it's great. But as we know as an industry, products don't always work, and that's fine as long as there's a good, easy use system. And when you talk about empowerment, the amount of manufacturers that don't have their tier 1 support individuals empowered to actually take care of somewhat simple issues, and usually require going to a higher tier or going to a manager or going around. I've at times gotten better success by going to the sales reps than by actually utilizing the service departments of the manufacturers.
That's awesome. So what we're learning here is, Mark, we're going to have to, pack a lunch and get in the trenches with Derek is what he's asking for, not just from us, from everybody.
Yeah.
That's pretty much the gist of it.
So the travel request to Chicago on my expense report out of territory should be approved. We're good. We should be okay.
There you
Awesome.
go. There you go. Well, we extended a little bit on this, but thank you guys for this part of the conversation. I think there's a lot to come out of it, and a lot of similar mindsets on both manufacturing and consulting and integrators around what provides the best customer or end user experience, as well as the best employee experience. Now, the reality of actually delivering that on a regular basis at scale is a totally different animal, and everybody's mileage may vary on that. So thank you very much. Appreciate everybody for joining us for the AV Smackdown.